What is going on? Welcome back to Jiu Jitsu Outlet. I'm sitting down with Roy Wragth. Roy is a blue belt, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and you're also an entrepreneur. So, man, I want to dive right into it. Can you just tell us a little bit about how has Jiu Jitsu helped your mental health since you started training?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Honestly, it's a pleasure to be here. Jiu-jitsu is very therapeutic for me, and to share some context, some backstory with the audience. In addition to an entrepreneur, I'm a Navy veteran. I have 3 tours. I've lost a lot of friends just from combat related suicide, mental health issues, and I myself struggled with mental health to the point that I had a failed suicide attempt in 2008. So when I found jujitsu, it was through a friend of mine who referred me to jujitsu. I started training, and I didn't really grasp the concept, but as I started to learn the techniques and just drilling and finding ways out of tough situations, I really use that as a therapeutic outlet to help me overcome my mental health. So within, therapy, within jujitsu, within working out and active lifestyle, and to this day I still go to therapy. I think that's kind of how jujitsu has helped me, but we can dive as deep as you want. I mean, I just come here to share value and let your audience know, hey, like this is really good.
Man, well, thank you so much for sharing. That's a powerful thing. And that's something that we've actually, I've heard from a couple people on this show is that it really saved their life from another suicide attempt or anything like that. So thank you, man, just for validating that. Just for anyone listening, I always put some links down below too. Like if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, that's me. I am going to put some links down below where you can get connected to help. But yeah, just know that jujitsu really does a lot for not just Roy, but a lot of people who have come on this podcast. But dude, I would, if you're okay with it, can we just dive into that just a little bit more? Just let's say there is someone who's listening and they're like, oh shit, that's me. That's kind of what I'm going through. I just started training. Just any tips for that person, both with getting into the therapy stuff, but also, training and how it actually helped.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And it's up until recently it was very hard to talk about, and even right now I really have to gather my thoughts because it's just hard to speak. But I basically I lost a friend through, we would get mortared and stuff, and I was in military, obviously aviation. I was doing air ambulance, and so we lost a couple friends, and I was young, I was driven, and I just wanted to go back. Like, let's get these guys. But I didn't realize the emotional toll that would do for me later. So I got depressed. I had anxiety. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to hang out with anybody. I just felt like, why me? Why not? Why not me? Why them? They had a family. Why did I get out? So I was kind of in my thoughts, and I put it off for so long, basically, that one day I just kind of got home, and I remember cleaning the house, and I pulled out my gun and I just started cleaning it, and I just put it to my head and I pulled the trigger, and the bullet, it jammed for some reason and everything. So I immediately dropped it, and I just started crying because I knew I needed help, and at that point I realized that there was no reason for that gun to fail. Like, I had just cleaned it, everything was good. Like, I racked it, oiled it, and so that for me was a letting me know that I need help, and I started getting help. So the way jujitsu helps me is in the mental health space is we in tough positions. Sometimes you're in someone's guard, or maybe they're coming up for a head and arm choke, or maybe knee on belly, or whatever position that they're in, find a way out. Right? You have to either create space, handle space. As business, as an entrepreneur, I'm super stressed. There's a lot of things that go on. What can I do to get out of here? Or what can I do to figure out a solution? Or can I move this around? Or, hey, maybe I'm not having a great day. I'm feeling bad. Can I go do something? Can I go for a drive? Can I go hang out with a friend? Can I try meditation? Can I read a book? So you're always looking for ways, in the same way that you're looking for escapes to get into a advantage position in jiu-jitsu. I don't know if that helps, but yeah.
Yeah, man, thank you so much for sharing. Um just the you're I think that you're hitting on something really big that everyone needs to understand, that when you are getting into that, it's almost like a Zen meditation space, that you get into during training, where it's like your thoughts are able to go blank, you're able to disconnect. And sometimes for someone who's going through a mental health crisis, that ability to like disconnect from your situation and almost get like a vantage point. It's like you go into class and it allows you to clear everything because it forces you into that Zen state that everyone talks about. And then afterwards, you look back on your problem and you're like, oh, yeah, that problem's still there. But you're able to like almost look at it with fresh eyes, and you're like, oh, yeah, I do have that thing that I was dealing with back then. But it feels different. It almost feels like you're looking at it with a fresh view because it's almost like you forgot about it for a minute, whatever it was, that thing, especially, if you're going through trauma and you're trying to really, or for me, like when I was going through my divorce, it's like that was top of mind, all day. Like it was really hard to turn that off because that was just what I was going through. But if I went to training, I could turn it off. And then after training, suddenly I was able to return to that with a fresh view and realize like, oh, wow, what if I thought about it like this? Or what if I did this? Or whatever, you know what I mean? So I feel like, man, that process is life saving for a lot of people.
Yeah, 100% agree with you there. And you're absolutely correct. It is life saving. I apply most, that was the way I deal with my mental challenges personally, how jujitsu helps me. But on the business, I have a performance shop. So I own a repair shop where we specialize in performance vehicles. So Corvettes, Camaros, take them anywhere from stock to 12, 14, 1500 horsepower, depending on what the customer wants. So in this space, as an entrepreneur, I have to make, tough business decisions, or I have to communicate with customers and set realistic expectations while keeping, okay, hey, this is a business. We have to be profitable. At the same time, we have to make sure we look out for the customer. So having a clear mindset to really hone in and strategize on what makes the most sense for both people is very, very hard to do, especially as a business owner, especially as a new business owner. So for me, I think what you just said, I 100% agree with that, because I go roll, I can have I can have the crappiest days here. I'll go roll, and then boom, I'll come back. So I roll in the morning. I roll early in the morning before my day starts. I wake up, meditate, check all my social medias, go jujitsu, and then boom, come back, eat, go to the gym, so when I'm at the shop, because I've already experienced jujitsu, and I say this to all my training partners, if I could survive an hour or 3 rounds of rolling with you guys, whatever this day has for me, it ain't nothing. And that's because I'm mentally putting myself in that position, just because I'm rolling with animals. Like, these are high level guys or low level guys, and it doesn't matter. But together we just come together, and my mind is, like you said, it's in a zen, and that kind of, it's that high last, most part of the day, and doesn't matter what happens. You're like, dude, I just got smashed by purple belt, blue belt, black belt. This ain't nothing. So yeah, I agree with that. Thanks for sharing that insight.
Well, thank you for sharing your insights. I think that you've got quite a few, and you hit on this a little bit already, but I want to dive into a little bit more. Can you just share some of the other ways that jujitsu and training in a combat martial art has helped you in your relationships, like in your life off the mats, whether, we're talking about your career or if we're talking about your family life? Like, can you tell us a little bit about how martial arts has helped with those aspects of life?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, some context here on my intro. So I joined the military right out of high school, 18 years old. I joined the Navy on helicopter engines. I did 11 years. Following that, I worked at NASA as a contractor that went into space, so heat shields. Following that, I worked at Google self-driving car company, Waymo. So I was a program manager, and I led a team of technicians that obviously maintained the self-driving fleet. And throughout those times, when I right my mid-career at NASA, that's when I found jujitsu, and it really helps me in the professional space, because challenges that you don't foresee in your career. So maybe you have a project, and something changed where you missed the deadline, or you missed the milestone, and we can either just say, hey, this sucks, we missed it, whatever, shrug your shoulders and keep on. But as a jujitsu practitioner, if someone gets you in guard, that fight's not over. If someone sets up a choke, that fight's not over until that choke, until like that hand is set, right? Like, so don't give up. And so taking that same concept and going and saying, hey, this sucks, but don't give up. Let's find something else that we can do. Can we maybe push it back a week, or can we reach out to a new vendor to see if they can get us sooner? And so that's kind of on the corporate / career side. You asked about relationships. Relationship side is the same thing. So I'll be honest, because of the trajectory of my business right now, my wife and I we're having challenges, right? We're growing pains, we're different paths in lives. But I go to jujitsu every morning, and I respect that, and I'm there for her. I support her, and we support each other regardless of how we're thinking. But jujitsu clears my mind because I'm not in my head thinking, oh my God, like, what am I gonna do? Like, this is not gonna work. We've been together for 9 years. Everything's coming apart. What's gonna happen to the house? What's gonna happen to the cars? Like, no, I'm not thinking that. I'm going in jujitsu, and I'm going in there saying, hey, I'm gonna go over here, and we're gonna get some good rows, some good drills, some good training. But all the worries that I have, to be able to come back at this with a clear mindset. So those are just two different avenues in terms of professional space and emotional / relationship space, where jujitsu has helped me big time.
Do you think that there's something inside of men, especially, that just needs to almost get like exercised regularly, or else we're just like a bunch of assholes that run around
Yeah.
needing to find a fight with each other? Because
Yes, yes, yes.
that was a bit of a loaded question. I'm
No, but it's a
sorry.
good one. It's a good question, and I don't feel that it's asked enough. So men, right? It's in our genes. It's how we were created. We were created to be providers, per se, or whatever you want to call it. Nowadays society is different, and that's totally okay. But how we were wired does not change. So we have egos, right? We have pride, we have this. And someone like me, I consider myself like a lone wolf, like a sigma, right? I same season an alpha, but I don't need to be the alpha. I don't need that clout. I can just done and move on to the next chapter. But I think jujitsu exercises that because it humbles everybody. Like, I don't care where you are, you get humbled, but then you get that relationship. It's like the nicest way to try to kill each other is the best way I can describe it. So you get, because you're out there putting in the work, and you might be the strongest guy ever, but it don't matter, man. If you shift your weight, if I have you in guard and you shift that weight forward, you're done. You're going over. So it goes to show that, hey, being macho or being pride or having an ego, that doesn't matter. Technique matters most. So I think that, yeah, as males, we should be exercising. We should be in jujitsu. For me, I like jujitsu. I like cars. I like to shoot. But these are all activities that are considered high risk, high stress. But on the contrary, they reduce your stress, and if it's controlled, it's no longer high risk. So absolutely, I think everyone, whether you're thinking about jujitsu, cops, military, you should at least try it. Show up, keep showing up, keep showing up. So
That's actually, you're hitting on one of the, like, I don't know if it's a slogan, but almost like one of the tenets of this whole jiu-jitsu outlet podcast. One of the whole tenets of what we're doing is really that, we believe that engaging in violence creates more peace, basically, or engaging in regular violence in a safe environment, at least. Ironically, it's like a paradox. It creates more peace. But I think that's a big part of like what the jiu-jitsu outlet mission is all about, is trying to spread that message that it's a paradox, right? But the more that we engage in this like killing practice, ironically, we become, calmer people. But there's science behind it. It's legit, It's
yeah,
legit.
there's science, and I lived through it. I'm
Yeah.
I'm a perfect example of using the therapeutic. Even today with my business, we take high performance cars. We'll do 180, 200 miles an hour at the half mile. And it's, people are like, oh my God, like, I was so scared to go that fast, but I did it, and it was so rewarding at the end. So I think there's parallels between that rush, or that release of dopamine, or whatever you want to call it, the endorphins. There's a relationship between, jujitsu and, like you said, high risk sports or high risk activities.
I'd like to dive into that just a little bit more. And so a lot of people consider business a really high risk activity. And I'm an entrepreneur as well. I've got a business development agency that I started back in 2016, technically, when I first got started. But I know that you've got a business as well. A lot of people, they think that just being in business is too risky for themselves. And they considered that in of itself like a risky thing, and I get that. But personally, I think a W-2 is just as risky, but that's might be a different conversation. But I guess what I'm saying here is how do you feel like jujitsu and business correlate? Like, what do you feel, put differently, what do you feel about jujitsu and business? Like, how do they hold hands together besides the fact that they're both quote unquote risky, to the outside? Like, what else do they have in common?
I think they're necessary. You need to have a balance, right? The business, stressful. Is it risky? Yes. W-2, risky? Yes. The best way to describe owning or starting a business for a non-business owner would be, imagine getting on a plane to go skydiving, you forget the parachute, but you jump off anyways. You just have to figure out, hey, can I use these leaves to stop me? Is can I try to like navigate myself towards water? So these are all things that you have to do because you have to survive. And it's the same concept, right? So jujitsu brings that balance of, the best way to describe it is, okay, you just jumped off a plane. Hey, here, jujitsu, you're going to go to jujitsu and train. And it's the equivalent of saying, hey, you just jump out and you're free falling. Here's jujitsu right next to you. They're handing you a string, or they're handing you a cloth, or they're handing you a trash bag, or they're handing you, they're handing you everything you need to make a parachute or to make yourself kind of, open up and slow that trajectory of the downward fall. And it's up to you to put it together to blend both of them to get to a safe landing. So, here's an inflatable raft, or here's life vest, pull it when you get in the water, or here's something to slow down your fall. So that's kind of how I look at it. They should be together. You should practice jujitsu, not for the physical, not for the mental. I mean, for both those as well, but those are going to directly affect how you handle your business decisions, which are equally as tough.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's almost like it gives you a blueprint or a framework
Correct.
that you can work through.
Exactly. Yep.
That's awesome, man. And just in business, like the business is systems. So it's almost like jujitsu gives you a system for evaluating these different things, or a system for how to deal with stress, I guess maybe is a different way to say it. And I feel like that's super important. And if you think about like the correlation between jujitsu and business too, like they're both about systems. Like
Correct.
I think it was Ray Kroc who said this. I could be totally off, but he was talking about like how McDonald's doesn't have the best burger, they have the best burger making system. And that's what actually is the business. The business is the systems. Like if you don't have a system, then really you just have a job, or you have a mom and pop job that, probably doesn't make a lot of money. But and jujitsu is the same sort of way. Like if you don't have a system to your jujitsu, it's not going to be effective, right? Like you're not going to be able to set anything up. So yeah, like I guess how do you feel about this sort of thing? Like I don't know, I guess worded differently, man. What else about jujitsu like inspires you?
The camaraderie, man. It's 100% the camaraderie.
Yeah.
And there's, you can tell, right? Like you and I both know, someone comes in there thinking they're all macho, and then there's somebody, dude, 30 seconds, they're done. They get swept, they get choked out. You know they're not gonna last. But I think that as you start showing up, no matter if you get hurt or not, you come back, whatever, people start recognizing, oh man, this is actually a good person, because we've mauled on this person like consistently for the past 3 months, but he keeps showing up. Maybe he's not so bad. So then you start building these friendships, you start building these relationships. And for me, one of the things I struggled with when I left the military was that camaraderie. When we were out and we were out in Kuwait, when we were out in Basra, it was a 12-man tent. We were there on our own, so we were family, right? Like we looked out for each other. One person slept, the other one stayed up. Something went off, woke up, boom, run, do what you got to do. But jujitsu, I still find that avenue. I find a lot of cops, a lot of veterans, a lot of people who are trying to improve their life show up to that, and you start building that. Oh, hey, what do you need help with? Oh, cool, I need help here. Oh, here, I know a guy, or here, I can help you try this. This works for me. And you build, everlasting relationships with great people. So I think camaraderie is another thing that people don't really mention, but it's more implied.
Yeah, and what's wild is if you look at all the top teams, what's wild is if you look at all the top teams, you see that this is actually something that they have in common. They have a really close group. Like look at Khabib and all the guys over in Dagestan, or Islam Makhachev. You know, it's a big thing, right? Is they're all living together since they were kids. They're all training together, and they're like the best in the world. You know, they're the best in the world. And they were all grown up living together. You know, or you see the same thing with I was thinking about John Jones. You know, John Jones just
John
won the
Jones.
heavyweight title. And I don't know if you watched like all the hype stuff leading up to it, but one thing I noticed was John Jones was training with like a squad. He had like 8 big dudes who were also heavyweights who he was hanging out with. And it sounded like they were bros. Like I was watching all the behind the scenes stuff. You could tell they were chilling, like they were friends, but they had been, like he said, you know, they'd been with them the whole camp for like what, 8 weeks. So super tight knit group. And then you went and saw Cyril Gahn and his training footage, and it was just him and his coach. It's just like him and one guy, you know, but John Jones, he's got like 10 guys. He's got a squad, you know, and they're all close. So I feel like, I don't know, it's just something I've been noticing a lot. It's like if you look at the high level guys or Pedigo submission fighting in jiu-jitsu, the Daisy Fresh guys, like they're getting all that clout too. Same thing. They all live together, right? They all sleep on the mats together and all that stuff. And they all have a squad, you know, they've got a community and they're dominating, right? Yeah. So like you or what's his name? What's his name? Mika Galvao, and the guys down at Fight Sports. And
Fight Sports.
Those guys, the same thing. There's like they've got a squad, you know, and they're becoming the best in the world. Or even the B team, same thing. The B team, they're all a squad. You know, they're all hanging out together. They're all close. You know, like, and they're becoming the best in the world. So it's like it's this theme that you just see all these top teams. It's the one thing they all have in common. They're super tight. And it makes sense, right? Like, think about it. Like, if back in the day we were all samurai or we were all Vikings together, like you would need a squad, you know, you would need your crew. And I feel like that's just lost these days. It's all about like, oh, it's just you. It's like, no, it's never been like that in history. We always had an army or a squad or a unit or something. And now it's like
on your own.
Yeah, exactly. So man, I feel like you're hitting on it, bro. You're hitting on like the real truth.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I was going to say, and I'll give the listeners a scenario here that happened maybe like 3 weeks ago, no, less than 3 weeks ago. I was having a crappy day, right? The shop just stressed. And when I roll, I still worry that, you know, something's going to trigger me. So I'll roll at like 50, 60%. Maybe if I'm comfortable, I'll roll at 70, but I'm never rolling at 100%, right? If I don't know you, I don't roll at 100. Even if I do, you'll get 60, 70. So I didn't want to roll with anybody in class, regardless if we've been training with them for years. I hit up one guy, he's a Purple Heart recipient, and he owns the gym next door to the Jiu Jitsu place. And I just went like, hey man, I'm having a shitty day. Like it's getting the best of me. He's like, let's roll. And he knew just from my energy, he knew exactly what I was going to. And he's a purple belt, so he's very good. He competes. James, shout out to you. I know you're gonna listen to this. So James Gonzalez. But he knew right away from the first time I grabbed his lapel, he already knew. And there's kind of like that energy of like, hey, we mixed like the veteran, we mixed the looking out for each other, and then we mixed the jiu-jitsu techniques, because we were rolling, we were kind of going aggressive, but it was all very controlled and all very technique. And if I got out of line, he would, you know, just kind of bring me back because he knew like my game was off. So, and at the end of the roll, I was like, man, like I really, really needed that. But I never told him why, but he knew something was there. And I know when he listens to this, he's going to be like, oh, like that was badass. Now I know why. So like you said, when you're in groups and stuff, you don't need, maybe, you know, I look at groups as like the gyms. That's your group. You don't need to tell someone you're having a bad day. They know from your body language. They know from that first strike that you try to do. And then, you know, you'll roll, you'll get it out of your system. And then at the end, they're like, hey man, what's wrong with you? Like, what do you need help with? So that's 100%. I agree with what you just said. I think, yeah, it's all about the squad. It's all about the people lifting you up, and it's all about the experience and the commitment.
And I think that there's something biological to it. There has to be, like, there's something, they're hormonal. This is something, I had a couple of months ago, I think it was last year, actually. I had a guy on the podcast named Musin Corbry. And there's I think it's one of the earlier episodes we did, but it's called The Science Behind Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and MMA. because Musin, he's a MMA, he's a pro MMA fighter, jiu-jitsu black belt, judo black belt. He's a crew in Muay Thai, and he also is a third year doctoral student studying neuroscience. So he's
Oh
literally like
wow.
the most qualified person I could find to talk on this subject. I was like, okay, you have 3 black belts, you're a pro fighter, and you're like studying the cutting edge of neuroscience. So I was like, please tell us, like, what is the science behind this stuff? And he broke it down. It's like an hour long episode. I think it's actually almost an hour and a half. So I won't steal his thunder, but the long and short of it is like basically jujitsu, it produces more dopamine, it produces more oxytocin, which is the chemical you get when you're touching people, which is something that a lot of people don't have because a lot of people just don't get touched. So, but it actually like produces a chemical that you need. And
Oh,
it
I didn't know
also
that.
raises your serotonin because it produces more. Basically, what he was talking about is he was saying that it basically achieves like the goal setting side of your brain and like produces more dopamine, which is kind of the stuff that happens when you like achieve a goal or something. But it also produces more serotonin, which is like the happiness chemical because of the kind of like gamified nature of it, like the fact that it's a game. It like turns on that kind of like playfulness part of your brain, and you're also getting the touch hormones too. So it's literally, we are breaking it down, but like the long and short of it is like jujitsu is addicting. Like, legit
Yeah.
is like taking drugs, basically. So
Yeah, and I do
powerful.
remember that episode because I didn't really understand it. I was so focused on, I was mind blown of the fact that I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to that one because he was like dropping some bombs and I was like, oh, that's why I feel that way, So that's really cool.
Yeah, man, I love it. But dude, anyway, we got to wrap this up. I just wanted to ask you one last thing, man. Like, let's say there's someone listening to this and they maybe just started their journey. Like, there's someone listening to this who maybe just like they're in their second or third or fourth jujitsu class, maybe. Like, what would you tell that person? And just any advice for them as they're like just getting started out.
Don't go in there with an attitude as first. Put your ego aside. Just work on being yourself and just keep showing up. It's gonna suck. The first year you're gonna get, first couple years you're gonna get beat. You're gonna get beat. You're gonna get beat. But just try to survive. Keep going. Try to survive. Try to understand what other people are doing to get out of those situations. And then as you drill, that's going to become better and you can apply the same concepts to whatever you need to do in life, whether that's business, whether that's your career, whether that's a relationship. So yeah, just keep showing up. Don't give up on it because it gets hard. Push past the suck.
I love it, man. I love that. And something I've been telling people a lot lately is like, it doesn't get better. Like, I've now been doing this 13 years. It doesn't stop. It actually gets worse because the thing is once you get to the higher level, then everyone's really good. It's not like you're good and you being good like somehow nullifies the other purple belt also being a purple belt. Like, no, he's like also really good. And it actually makes it really like much harder because
Yeah,
if you slack off for a moment, then well, you
you're
got your
done.
guard pass. Yeah, or something. So like it actually gets worse. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. I was rolling with James Krause at a seminar. He's our head coach a few weekends ago, and he tapped me in like 45 seconds. So yeah, like, I'm still getting my ass kicked. It's just,
Yeah.
there's always a bigger fish. Oh man. Dude, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Can you just let us know, like, is there anything you want to promote or yeah, just anything you got going on that you want to tell us about?
Man, there's a lot of stuff I do. I mean, performance cars, I build functional websites, but no, honestly, to keep things, I'm not going to come in here and do a sales pitch or anything. But if someone wants to find me or someone wants to get hold of me, just reach out, talk. It's royw.com is my website. And, I'll give it to you so you can post it on the link. And it's got everything you need to know about me, how to get a hold of me. Even if you just want to chat, and maybe you're going through some mental health and you just want to talk to me, like, I'm here. So whatever I can do to help, I've got a lot of diverse experiences in my life, from corporate to business to mental to military, that I think that, if anyone needs that, I'm here for them. And if I don't know, I can guide them down the right path.
Roy, thank you, man, for coming on the show. Appreciate you. And yeah, keep on keeping on, bro. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.